All right, so welcome to the Out of Chaos podcast, a discussion based podcast where we try to make sense of the chaotic world we live in. We talk about life, business, self development, and so let's open our minds to greatness and grow together. Today, we're on episode 5, which is we're discussing Philia Love. It's our second part to our 4-part series, which is the 4 types of love. Last episode, we discussed storge love, which is family love. This week, we're discussing Philia love, which is the friendship love, affection that people grow. That's not necessarily bounded by blood, more like just brotherly love, friendship love. So with me today is my guest co-host Joel. So Joel.
Thank you for the invite. First
Oh.
podcast. I'm pretty excited. Looking forward to it.
And it's glad to have you on. I'm very happy, very excited to have you on here. For you to share your feedback, to share your thoughts. I've always valued your opinion. I've always valued what you have to say. I always felt like it was very insightful and honest. So that's why I decided to bring you on today.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Joel, like basically the reason why I wanted to have you on is it's something that's been troubling me because this is the reason why we did this 4-part series was because I know you heard the Storge episode, right?
Yep.
And the kind of like the main focus I wanted to like emphasize everything on it was that sometimes the love we get, whether from our family members, our spouses, or our friends, it's not always useful, and I think that's the premise of last week's podcast. So Joel, I've known you from high school, right? I know like maybe we had different experiences, even though we didn't maintain in touch for the last like couple of years. What was your experience with high school, with friends, or in general?
Well, I still have friends from high school. Well, I have them on Facebook, but I haven't really been in touch with too many friends, to be honest. With high school, you grow, right? And
Yeah.
develop different personalities, and you can be a different person depending on, which path you go to. I'd say I got in touch in college with different friends, and I made a lot of my friends from work. I have a lot of Facebook friends, but it doesn't matter how many friends you have on Facebook, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you have 1,000 Facebook friends, or if you know people that have more than 1,000 Facebook friends, how many of them can they really rely on, right? But yeah, I have very few friends that I keep in touch with, from middle school,
Yeah.
high school. It's just that it's an age where you're still growing,
Yeah.
you're not, your brain is still developing. You're not 100%. They say your brain, fully matures when you're 25, somewhere around that age. So when you're still growing, you're still finding out who you are.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, I really wanted to surround myself with people who would benefit me. I want to surround myself with the right people
Yeah.
to put me on the right path.
And the point that you bring up is actually like the premise of this episode, which is since like we like I'm not saying that like younger people don't make like good decisions all the time. I'm pretty sure they do. I did somewhat as well as my mistakes. What I wanted to focus on is like what you said, like our minds don't fully develop until we're like in our 20s, mid 20s, or sometimes late 20s, right? In terms of like the friendship aspect, where we start to see like the friends that we had, like obviously middle school we had a bunch of friends, high school a bunch of friends, and then slowly you kind of like start losing that friendship because like you go off to university, you find a girlfriend, boyfriend, you kind of like get married or you just move on, do other things, right? So you lose friends in the process. But like the main point that I wanted to bring up from all this was like that since your mind is not as developed as you assume, the friendship choice is not always going to be the best choice. That's kind of what I want to focus on. That it's kind of like a partner, right? You when you're young, you see a pretty girl, like oh my god, like I'm just gonna go date her. But obviously when you get older, you're like, okay, you know what? Like, does she have baggage? Is she actually a good girl? Does she have good morals? Do you get what I'm saying?
And you want somebody with ambition.
Yeah.
Obviously, whoever your lifetime partner is going to be, you want them to be ambitious. You want them to have the same ideals as you.
Yeah.
You want to have the same level playing field. You guys want to be on the same page.
Yeah. No, I completely get you because if you're not, like, how are you going to build anything off that, right? And that's the thing. Like, the same goes for friendship because that's the point I want to bring up, right? Like, a lot of friendships that we had, they were dear friends of ours in high school, right? But I don't know about you, but, like, I did have friends that were bad influences, but back then I didn't consider them to be bad influences. Did you? Now looking back, do you have that experience?
Well, when I was growing up, even from middle school, whenever I would stay back for extra activities or just hang out with friends, my mom would always be very cautious of who I hung around with.
Yeah.
So it was always drilled in my head, and I eventually knew that, if I'm going to surround myself with certain people that are bad influences, I'm not going to have a positive future. Like, I always wanted to have the best possible future for myself, but also, I saw people that I didn't want to become. So
Yeah.
if I saw, even if you see it on TV, somebody who is like a drunk or somebody who is addicted to drugs, somebody who's homeless, I told myself I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
Or even when you're walking on the street, when you see somebody homeless, I do think about times where, wow, this person, what happened to them?
Yeah.
And it could be anybody, it could be you, it could be me. If we followed that wrong path, maybe that person had surrounded himself with bad influences. You never know, right?
You know that saying where it goes like tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. And it's such a delicate topic, right? Which is why I like to think that our podcast is slightly a little bit more different, because I want to say the hard things, right? And the hard thing is like sometimes we have friends that like have been so amazing to us. I know I was mentioning to you before, like friends that like have done amazing things for us. So to let them go would almost feel unfair, right? And I know there's a lot of people listening that can relate. Like they're friends that have done amazing things. Like maybe they lent them money when they needed. Maybe they did a favor for them when they needed. When they were heartbroken, they cheered them up. But that doesn't mean that you're bounded to them. Do you agree?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And this is going to sound super cliche, but there's that saying that goes, birds with the same feather flock together, something like that.
I've never heard that. That's
yeah.
cool.
So here it is. It's birds with the same feathers flock together.
Yeah.
I believe that's how it goes. If you Google search it, maybe I may be wrong a little bit, but it's something along those lines.
Yeah. And I completely agree. And again, I'm not saying that this is like a bad thing. I'm just giving an example, right? But like for me, something that I never wanted to like be a part of was like the weed smokers. Again, like if you do it, I'm not judging that. I'm saying like for me, I never wanted to be a part of that, to be known as like, oh, the stoners or whatever. Because in high school or middle school, there was always like clique, right?
Like, I remember that bus stop right across the school, right in front of us. It was known as that. It was that bus stop with the shed. What do you call it?
The shelter, right? Yeah, the bus shelter.
They always use that bus shelter to just smoke up weed all the time. And, and the parking lot as well. There's always those two spots.
I think every school has a designated like area. But like for me, I a lot of my friends always try to persuade me, and it was peer pressure. It was a lot of peer pressure where my friends would try to convince me. But I told myself it's something I would never do, right? And no matter how much peer pressure, it's crazy that a lot of my good friends never once like respected my decision. Like I always said no, and they were always pushy about it, and yet I still kept them as friends. So like for me, and for the record, like I've never smoked weed in my life. I maintained what I wanted to do, right? But for me, like being surrounded with friends that maybe would have been like, hey Oscar, like I respect your decision, would have been so much better like than being like told all the time to do it, right? So again, like because remember the point I brought up was that sometimes we bound ourselves subconsciously to these friendships that we don't need to have, just because these people like have done one or two good things for us. They've been there for us. They're like a brother, like a sister, which I was mentioning to you. It doesn't bound us to them, and the reason why I'm even bringing this up is because through speaking with multiple people, a lot of people are bound, just like the family love last episode. We talked about like being bounded to your family. Imagine that. Like if you can do that with a toxic family member, how can you not do that with a like a friend that you just meet in the street? So that's what I'm trying to say. The point of the podcast is to call out chaos and bring it to light and to balance it, right? And I know a lot of people that have abusive and toxic friendships that they need to get out of, and that's kind of like the point I'm trying to make.
For sure. And going back to your friends, who smoked pot, weed, How does it make you feel when they ask you, "Hey, come on, bro, come on, just try it one time. It's just once. You gotta try it at least one time." How does that make you feel? Do you push them away? Do you not talk to them, or do you just try to maintain a distance? How do you react to that?
So
Because people might be in similar
yeah,
situations where, for example, let's say somebody's trying to lose weight, and then all their friends, all they want to do all the time when they meet up is go to a restaurant, go for wings, go
yeah,
for beer, go for fries, and they have a goal in mind. They just want to lose some weight.
yeah,
So I know it's not drugs, but I think people can relate because they might have friends who try to get them to do things that they don't want to do.
yeah.
How do you handle
So
that?
I have two main points. Number one, there's a pet peeve that I have, and that's that like if I tell you, let's say like, hey man, like I don't like carrots, which I don't like carrots by the way, but I tell you like I don't like carrots. If you go like, hey man, you want carrots? Like, and I don't like or like if you because your intention is to try to get me to like carrots, I hate that, man. Like I can't because I know people like even my own parents, right? Like I tell my mom like when I was younger, right, I would always tell her like, mom, like I hate spinach, right? And then she's like, okay, try it. I'm like, mom, like I told you I don't like spinach, so like please, if I told you I don't like this, why would you keep offering it to me, And maybe I sound like a jerk, but it's just for me it's respect, right? Because if I tell someone, hey, do this, and they say, hey, no, like I don't want to, why would I tell them again? I don't know, like, but I get it because they're your friends. They want you to like kind of like join them, you know. But like if you say, hey, like this is not what I want, why would you tell me again, you know? And like I have an example like all the time with maybe in breakups, right? Sometimes when you're going through a breakup and you just want some advice, be like, hey man, you should take care of your heart, make sure that like you learn from this experience, take your time. Most of my friends would be like, hey man, like there's a bunch of girls, like let's go clubbing, let's go here, let's go there. I'd be like, no man, like I don't feel too good, like I want to just like chill for a bit. Be like, no no no, come on, let's go. Like let's say you listen to them, like you're gonna end up making mistakes, right? Let's say you like knock a girl up or something. That's something that you pay for the rest of your life, for listening to your friends. And last week I talked about that family love is a foundation to your life because it's the first type of love, but then a second foundation would be friendship because you spend more time with your friends. So friendship, man, it's the biggest, most important like part of your life aspect, right? Because your friends shape everything. If you were raised like in the ghetto versus being raised in like Beverly Hills style, like super high end community, your life is going to be completely different. The way you speak, the way you act, the way you think is going to be completely different. And that's so intriguing. Like, don't you think so? Like,
Yeah, I 100% agree. The only thing I would say is, depending on where you grow up, it might motivate you to follow a different path. Like, for example, if you're growing up in the ghetto and all you see is violence, gangs, people getting robbed,
yeah,
and people trying to hustle other people, you might be thinking to yourself, I don't want to become that.
yeah,
How do I avoid, those situations? Or let's say, for example, your father's a drunk or your mother's a drunk or they're drug addicts. You know, you might be thinking, okay, this child might want to become like their parents. It might think that this is normal, but there might also be this switch where it turns on and the child starts thinking, wow, this is not normal. I don't want to become like them. So it depends on the person as well, in my opinion.
because I'll give you an example. Like, I mentioned this to you earlier, where like, um, let's say you have a friend that really loves you, takes care of you, does all these things for you, and they wish you the best. But then the moment that you start kind of doing better than them, like let's say you lose more weight than them, you get a better job than them. Like I think it's common that like they start to become haters and they start kind of wishing you bad. And I have a bunch of people that have told me stories, horrific stories like that. Like girls maybe saying to another girl like, "Hey, like you should go out with that guy. Like stop being so picky." People tell me that all the time.
That's
They're
crazy.
like, bro, that's the one thing. If I listen to people, who knows where I'd be right now? Because all my friends, well, my I guess quote unquote like friends, like they always like tell me, Oscar, you're too picky. But if I like, and at the beginning of my like when I was younger, I would be like, damn, like maybe I am, So I would try to like in my vision lower my standards or like be more open, right? But like when I got older, I'm like, no, it's not because I'm not being picky about the wrong things. I'm not being picky about like just random things like, hey, she doesn't drive. You know, like
Exactly.
I'm trying to be more picky with like moral standards, like beliefs. You know, does she like respect her family, right? Like, and for my friends to tell me like, hey, stop being picky. There's so much problems with that, man. That means there's so many problems because that means they don't know me. They don't care enough to like understand decision that I'm gonna make might be a big decision, right? Because friends just give you advice like, just do this, but what happens if it's life changing decisions? You know, like let's say you tell that guy to like go date that one girl, and then that one girl turns out to be like super toxic, and she like takes all your money, and like, you know,
Exactly.
that advice is gonna. So again, the premise, the point, the thesis of what I'm trying to say is that just because like friends are friends and they back you up, maybe in a fight, and they'll back you up, maybe with money, whatever, doesn't mean that you're bounded to them.
Do you
You
think
know?
it's possible to find these red flags when you meet somebody? For example, let's say you guys are vibing, you guys, have a couple of drinks or you have dinner, you watch a game. Are you able to tell beforehand if this person's going to be toxic, or does it take a certain amount of time? Because I feel like it's hard to tell. You can't, it's hard to tell what this person might become, right? And I think this can be negative as well because you don't want to be skeptical all the time. You
Yeah.
obviously want to open up a little bit, but you don't want to be that kind of person who never trusts anyone. I think it's good to
That's a good
trust
point.
some people, but I think that's a challenge in my opinion. You never know what you're gonna get.
Bro, what you said is so crazy because I know a lot of people hearing this. Maybe they won't say it out loud, but in their hearts, I know they're like at that point, especially older people. They're at that point where like, I don't know who to trust. I can't trust anybody. And bro, I've always been in that mindset. Like, don't give me none of that victim mentality. You know, like we've all been betrayed. How many times have you betrayed? Maybe you betrayed people. I think I've betrayed people without even knowing. You know, like we all make mistakes. We're not perfect, right? But I always think that like it's important you to answer your question. I think you can see these things,
So you
these
believe that it's possible to spot these red
flags,
flags?
right? 100%. And I'll give you an example, right? Like with you, right? Like when I told you about like my recent like job search and stuff, you were genuinely trying to help me. You know what I'm saying? Like you, and by being genuine is like you actually, you said this, you said that. Okay, let me explain it better. Like, I feel like it's not what you say, it's the way you say it. So when I told you, like, yo, congrats, like, you know, and even the way we treat each other. So one red flag for anybody listening is that the moment you give someone good news, if they switch anything, any tone, any gear, if they switch the way they are, usually that means there's a problem. That's like the number one sign. I've seen it 100 times, right? Like if you tell them, "Hey, man, like I just got a promotion," people should be like themselves, like, "Oh my god, awesome!" If that's how they are always, but be like, "Oh, cool." And usually you tell them, "Hey, I got a win on Warzone or something." They'll be like, "Awesome," and like, "Hey, I got a promotion." Oh, nice, man, you can do it. You know,
Yeah.
that little switch, and maybe some people can be like, oh, maybe they're having a bad day. I don't know about you, man, but like I want to treat people the way I want to be treated. And if my brother or my friend, brother, I mean friend, like they get a promotion, they're having like, an amazing day, I'm gonna put aside what I feel and be like, yo, amazing. Like I'm not gonna like put my like my you get what I'm saying, like put my
Exactly.
stress on them. Like if they're happy, I'm gonna like back off, and be like, bro, I'm happy for you.
You
You
gotta
know?
celebrate that moment too. If you got a
Exactly.
promotion, man, I'm gonna say to you, congrats. Let's celebrate. Obviously, post COVID, if
Yeah.
this is possible, but there's always gonna be people who don't want to celebrate with you, and they have their own baggage and just they have issues, and they try to ruin your moment.
Yeah. I'll give you one big obvious red flag that I don't know if people have caught on is that if people, okay, this is the best way to say this. If people give you some advice that they wouldn't take, then don't listen to it because it's not sincere. It sounds common. It sounds like it's common sense, but it's not as common as you think. Because I'll give you an example. There's again, let's say there's a girl, be like, let's say you're on the fence whether you think you should date her, and your friend says, "Come on, do it," right? So I'll be like, if you were in my shoes, would you do it? Like, you just watch the reaction, you know, because and everything is like that. Like, hey, like, like I might get this promotion. Do you think I should go for it? And if would you go for it? If they and do you see like trust
Yeah,
me,
there's a
you'll
pattern.
see them. You'll see like their face. If you're on the phone, you'll hear the tone of their voice. You'll see their face. Like, and if they want to fake it, then obviously it makes it harder, right? But like 9 out of 10 times, like when you throw the question back at them, that you will see it. You know, like so whenever it happens, you gotta like if their attitude switches, that's a red flag. And if you throw the question back at them, you're gonna get a real answer. And if they fake it, then when you fake something, you gotta show it in some way, right? So then you'll catch on by there. So those are like two main ways.
I think it's something you pick up over time.
Yeah,
As you
for
as
sure.
you as you grow old,
Yeah.
people think it's all about IQ, about how smart you are, but there's also something called EQ. EQ is emotional intelligence,
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
that's something that not everybody has. So
Yeah.
just being able to recognize social cues, looking at a person's expression, and being able to tell whether or not how they feel.
Yeah.
If you're helping a client out, or if you're helping somebody out, and you can see that their arms are crossed and they're looking away from you, you can tell they're not interested.
I'll give you an example.
I'm still working on it now, the
Yeah.
EQ stuff. I'm not an expert, but
No, I
I
get
try
you.
my best to really read a person through their expressions and how they look at me, because it's even harder now because I'm not really seeing a bunch of people right now
Yeah.
with COVID.
yeah.
Everything, especially at work, all my meetings are through calls, not even Zoom. So
Yeah.
you can't even tell people's expressions. So right now it is a challenge, but before it was easier.
So I think what you're saying is like, obviously, be like aware, like awareness, emotional awareness, right? Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you'll see it, right? Like when you be like, hey man, like I let's say like I again, let's bring up the promotion one, promotion, like you'll see it, man. Like trust me, like it's so funny to see because. I think it's what you said. Like the older you get, maybe the easier it is to spot. Because before, maybe I was just so caught up in my own emotion. I'm like, hey, like I'm happy right now that I wouldn't notice, like the haters around me, right?
Exactly.
But now that I'm like, I'm genuinely happy, I'll say it, and then like I'll just like automatically just see people's reaction.
It might not be that they're not happy for you. It could be that they envy you too.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to
they
be.
could be in
You're
a
right.
situation where they're thinking, "Man, I wanted a promotion too."
Yeah. But even then, and that's what I'm trying to say, like, it all goes back to the attitude, right? Because you'll see the difference. There's a difference between, like, in Spanish, there's a saying, it's like when you pretend like you haven't heard anything, you know? It's like, Joe, I got a promotion. You're like, like looking away, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, and there's like, yeah, well, I'm happy for you. And then you kind of see that they're like, maybe they wanted a promotion, right? So, like, again, it all goes back to what you said, like, emotional awareness. All right, so I wanted to dive into like 3 main points of friendship, right? Of what like a good friendship kind of looks like. So I want to like remind people like friends you choose. Like last week with our last episode we talked about family love. Family love you're kind of born into, right? You don't choose your dad, you don't choose your mom, you don't choose your siblings, but friends you do choose. So it's dangerous, but it's also very beautiful, right? Because when you get to choose, you're responsible for your choice, right? But as well as being able to choose, you can choose something amazing, right? So the 3 main points I want to use, and you can chime in anytime you want, elaborate. Point number 1, that the friendship has to be useful. So coming from the point from last week, the friendship has to be useful. So like just because you're friends with someone doesn't mean it's useful. I mean, they can be useful because let's say you're sad, they could just take you out, right? But does it ever outweigh or outlive its use? Because that's what happens. Right? Sometimes in high school, you guys were friends because you guys used to help each other study, but maybe you guys outlive that or outgrow that. Do you agree?
I believe you can outgrow the hobbies and stuff, but I think you can remain friends if you guys still have similar interests.
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
So like, I guess what I'm saying about like useful is that like, useful maybe to each other's lives, right? So last week, for Storgy Love, I was talking about that just because I say your mom gave birth to you, there's mothers that like drown their kids, right? So like their love isn't useful. Sometimes like they raise their kids so like messed up emotionally and mentally, like that's not useful love. They might have gotten love, she probably pampered them, she probably fed them and changed their diaper and make sure they went to school, whatever. But then if you're gonna like abuse, like emotionally abuse them, they're not gonna grow up useful. Like their love is gonna be useless, right? So similarly with friends, like just because like you guys like play video games together or go shopping together, it doesn't mean that like the advice they gave or their friendship overall is useful, because sometimes it can be damaging. Do you
Well, I have friends who I'm down to have a drink with, because they're funny, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they might not be entirely useful. They might not be similar as me as being ambitious. It's really up to me to decide how invested do I want to be in that
I agree.
relationship with them, right? So I think it's okay to have, all kinds of friends. If you just want to have a drink, if you think they're funny, it's good to have. They don't always have to be somebody who is going to help you get a promotion, or they might know
Yeah.
some people too otherwise.
Yeah, because I guess I was referring more like let's say when you do because so let me just list 3 points, and then maybe it's easier to understand like that. Because let's say useful, it's good because even if you go for like drinks with friends, it's that friendship is useful because that outing, those drinks allow you to kind of wind down, to just like keep your mind out of like work or whatever problems you're going through, and just like wind down, have fun with your friends, like just joke around and stuff. So that friendship would be useful in that it relieves stress, right? Which kind of brings to the second point, which is pleasurable. Pleasurable meaning when you talk to this person, you feel happy. They teach you a thing or two, maybe by accident. Going to that analogy again about going to the bar, like having a laugh. Like
Yeah.
it's a pleasurable being in each other's presence, right? Versus like a competitive. And some people like that for some reason. And if that's your cup of tea, then I guess good for you. But like, do you get what I'm saying? And then like the third would be virtue, which is something that everybody would agree with. But I'm a kind of person that like my friends. Again, what you said is right. Like you could have like friends that like are a little crazy, a little out there.
For sure.
But I'm saying like your close friends, like because remember this friendship, love. I'm talking about like affection, deep bond, right? Those kind of people have a big impact in your life, so they should be a little virtuous, not perfect, virtuous, which is just true. Have some good moral standards, some good thoughts. They have good views on life. Good head on their shoulders, ambitious. So, what do you think?
I agree 100%. Yeah, I think if you have all those three, useful, as in having benefit, pleasurable, virtue, those
Yeah.
are good solid points to have in a friendship.
Like, okay, so I'll give you an example. Like, even if you don't say nothing, like I call you and I'm like, Joe, like I feel sad. Like, can you just sit on the phone with me? And like, even if you don't say nothing, like that, just like you having someone on the other line is useful.
100%.
You know,
Yeah.
because again, like it all goes back to like the reason why I pointed these things out is because if you know what to kind of look out for, you'll see. If you see the opposite, then that's why you should run away. So what's the opposite of useful? Useless.
Exactly.
So whenever you go to someone and then like you need help and they kind of like, oh, I'm busy, whatever, then maybe you shouldn't be that close with them.
I
You know?
think everybody should try this as a social experiment. Go through their phone contact list and really scroll through and see who would be able to pick up the phone at 3 a.m. or who are you comfortable with calling at 3 a.m. if you have any kind of issue.
Yeah. Yeah. No, perfect. And then let's say pleasurable. What's the opposite of pleasurable? Right? Like let's say being in someone's presence, you're like, oh, like you feel like it's a burden. You're not even having fun. They kind of take the joy from you. That would be the opposite of pleasurable, right? And last, virtue. But the thing about virtue is that what is virtuous to me maybe might not be virtuous to you. But there are some common and that like the universal virtues that we can all agree. Obviously, like don't go around killing people. Like don't steal, don't treat others the way you want to be treated. So the thing is, a lot of friends don't see that. Like they have friends that are actually garbage people, and they still like, hey, this is my best friend. So like, okay, so you want to be friends with someone who's not virtuous, someone who doesn't respect their house or their mom or their dad, or someone who steals from work. And this might like anger some people because we all have some friends like that, right? But that's the point I want to try and say. Like, virtue might be the main one, because if you're not virtuous, you're probably not going to be that pleasurable, and you're probably not going to be that useful. and a good influence. I don't know if you agree.
I agree 100%. The only thing I would say is, yeah, somebody might have a trash friend, a garbage friend,
Trash friend.
yeah, like whatever you were saying. You said garbage, so
Yeah, yeah.
I just bunny hopped on that. But what if that, a trash friend says to you, "Hey, I got his back no matter what." What do you say to that?
You everything is balanced, right? So that if that's the case, you would have to outweigh how much of the trash and how much of the good is outweighing each other. Like it would all depend. So I guess I have a little story for you. Maybe it might enlighten you, or it might like help you understand what I'm trying to say. Like I when I was in elementary school, I got like I don't want to say jumped, but like some kid over Pokemon cards. He literally like assaulted me, like he like attacked me. He was older, right? Maybe a year or two. And I had a friend that he lived right in front of my house, and he was like my brother. Like literally, we were friends, best friends. He'd always come over and stuff. And I don't know where this guy came from, but like the guy came on top of me. He was like hitting me, and then I don't know where. Like I'm like laying down, like facing up, and this guy's like pummeling me, and I don't know where my friend comes and like just jumps on him, and they start getting into a fight, and the guy gets up and runs away. Um, so I felt so much love for that guy, even more than I felt. He was already my brother, and so I felt like he backed me up, whatever. Fast forward, like maybe a couple months later, maximum a year later, um, I would always leave. Do you remember, like back in elementary, like you hang your jacket in your bag, like on those little hooks?
Yes.
So again, I was very like gullible. I was very like I was young, so like I would always leave my house key in the pouch of my backpack. And one day, when I got home from school, like the door was open, and whatever. Like I didn't make anything. I thought like somebody was home, or like my mom was home or something. And then I went upstairs, and like the first thing I'll do is like play N64, right? So I went up to like turn on TV, and it was gone. When Nintendo 64 was
Your
gone.
N64 was
Yeah,
gone.
it was gone, right?
How did you handle that?
Okay, so not even like 2 hours later, I got a call from my friend's mom, crying, saying that like she was apologizing because it turns out that my friend and some other guy went into my bag and took my key and went into my house at lunchtime and stole my system. And bro, like I was young, like I didn't know. Obviously, it hurt. But like I didn't know how to make because think about it, like you have such a high esteem for someone, you love them like your brother. This guy defended, like he took blows for me. He could have been like attacked or or like the guy pulled out a knife or something. He and then to like do what he did, it's like what like your mind. I was a kid,
it
right?
doesn't make any sense at all.
Exactly, right? And I'll tell you the truth, like I never did, nor especially now, like I never hated him. I was never like angry. I was more like shocked. I was confused, which is what I'm telling you. Like, how can someone do such an amazing thing? And not just once. Like, he was like, my friend for a while.
Yeah.
But then what he did, like, it can never be the same after that. It can never. And obviously, he apologized. And, like, I think our friendship was never the same. Like, he never came over or anything. But, like, I never hated him for that, right? But it kind of taught me that valuable lesson where friendship has to be just like love in a romantic relationship, even in a familial relationship. It has to be proven all the time. And again, me too, right? You got to be a little bit smarter too. Like I left my key in a bag, like I was a kid, right? But that taught me, I don't believe, and those of us watching, you watching, like, I don't believe that just because you have a bad experience, you stop trusting people. My responsibility is not people's actions. It's only my own actions. So I'm going to put my love and my trust over here. And if you betray me, that's your problem. My hands are clean. I go home happy. I know I did the best I could. So
if he, your friend, or at the time who took the N64, if he says to you, if he slides into your text or DMs and he says to you, "Hey man, my bad about what happened in elementary school. I did not mean to do those things. I feel bad for doing that." Would you respect him more, or would you still try to keep a distance and try to cut him off? Like, would you accept an apology at this point?
No, that's a good question, man. 100%. Because he actually did that when we were younger. Now that we're older, like it's been like 10 years or 15 years. Yeah, 100%. I did respect him because what I found out is that he felt bad, so he told his mom. that he did that, and his mom called. So it wasn't like his mom made him call, and he felt horrible, whatever. The thing that I believe is that if something like that happens, man, like it's like a piece of paper, right? It'll never be the same. And maybe I'm wrong for that, but I don't think it can ever be the same. Like because I was friends with him still, but it wasn't like we didn't play together anymore. He didn't come over. It wasn't ever the same. Obviously for my parents too, right? They were kids. Kids do dumb things too. I don't hate the dude. I never did. He still did a lot of good things for me. But whatever. So the point of this story was that if this happens at like a bigger level, right? Where friends, they can betray you in a bigger scale, right? And that's kind of like what I want to leave people with, right? That just because people do amazing things for you, it doesn't mean that they are necessarily in it for the long run. So I don't know. It's a pretty crazy story, right? Because I never expected that in a million years.
It's still like I'm processing that right now, just because he has to go into your jacket, get your keys, go to your house, make sure nobody's home, and then have that window of opportunity to take your N64.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a lot.
And it was that, and the reason why I bring up this story, because I have other ones, like, it's because this happens at an adult scale. Like, remember, we can just blame us for being kids. These kids were dumb, like, they just wanted to steal, whatever. But, like, people that do that now, being, like, 20, 30, 40, 50, like, people doing that at that age, that is, like, you are fully conscious of what you're doing. And yet, they do these things, and people still consider them friends. Again, like you said, we don't want to be pessimistic. It's not about being negative Nancy's. This is about calling out chaos, right? And the chaos is that when you don't check those three things, virtue, pleasure, and usefulness, you're susceptible to befriending a potential like Troy situation where like people can pretend to be your friend and they'll destroy you. And sometimes not even on purpose. I'm not saying people are there intentionally waiting at the gates like, hey, I want to befriend this guy and destroy him. Like, no, I'm saying like just because remember that's the point of this love series is because if you don't have if you don't understand any of these loves, family love, friendship love, romantic love, and spiritual love, how can you ever be a good spouse? How can you ever be a good friend? How can you ever be a good brother, sister, father, mother, right? That's the thing. The foundation that is love is so necessary to function in society. Because then the problem is that you can only be a good husband every once in a while. You can only be a good daughter every once in a while, every Mother's Day, every Father's Day. That's kind of like the main point.
Yeah, and bunny hopping on what you're saying, I believe that a lot of people are confused about what love is. Just recently Valentine's Day passed, and I remember all the guys were wondering, I got to get flowers, I got to get chocolate, I got to make her happy. And I saw girls posting on Instagram pages their roses, their flowers, all that kind of stuff on the 14th. But why does it have to be on the 14th?
Yeah.
If you don't give your girlfriend flowers or chocolates on the 14th, is that a bad thing? Now, I might get a lot of hate for this. People might not agree with what I'm saying. I believe that if you are already doing those things up until that point and still are, Valentine's Day is just another day to me. I think that you don't only have to wait on the 14th to provide your girlfriend with flowers or chocolates or any kind of gifts. What's your opinion on that?
I completely agree. I live by this rule. Like, if you're going to do something, like if you're going to call me out on something, if you're going to declare something on social media, be consistent. Like if you're going to say, hey guys, stop being like lazy and get up and be active. I fully expect them to be saying that to me every day, all day, and that they are doing that, right? So same thing. If you're going to be blasting on social media how much in love you are, you better be doing these three things. You better be useful to your girlfriend, boyfriend. You better be virtuous. You better be pleasurable. Because if you're not, then you are a hypocrite, right? And that's the thing. What I believe about, like, my opinion, well, but the audience doesn't know, and my opinion about holidays is that there's a potential to create bad habits, right? A lot of mothers get gifts only on Mother's Day, and then the rest of the week, the rest of the year, their kids are like doing bad stuff. They're dishonoring their mother, but then on Mother's Day, they're getting the gift. So it goes back to the premise of these 4-part series, this 4-part series, which is the love you give has to be these things every single day. And that can sound cliche, but it's not like it is that thing where it's like you got Valentine's every day, but it's not just that simple. What is that love? And this is why we're looking at these series, right? The next episode we're gonna be talking about is Eros, which is romantic love, and we could be dive into that one, right? But to end this, basically, I just want to remind people some things to guys remember in a friendship. Maybe you can give your input, but I have here, you don't have to stay friends with someone. You can leave. There's a lot of fear. I've talked to many people that they go like, no, if I leave, I'm a bad friend. No, you were born free. You can be free. You don't have to be friends with anybody you don't want to be. There's no obligation. You don't need many friends, just a few good ones, right? Sometimes you can focus on being a better friend by having few. Just because someone calls you a friend doesn't mean they can be trusted. Because I'm kind of gullible. Like, you call me, yo, brother. I'm like, hey, man, like, yo, what up? And I befriend them. That's me, right? But I've learned that it doesn't mean that they have my best interest. Having done favors in the past doesn't mean you own them forever. Things and people change, which is kind of a point you brought up. Friends are like teammates, and that's like a really big one, right? We should be teammates. If you're my friend, you're my teammate. You're not my rival. You're not my competition, right? And I think that I want to end with that one because that one's, I think, is the best one. If we're friends, I wish you the best. Like, if we're in a team, if you score, that means we win. If I score, that means we win. So we always win together. So whatever you do is for the best of our friendship, and whatever I do, right? I don't know if you agree.
No, I was just thinking about how we might have trolls in the comment section saying, well, I don't have any friends. Well, my solution to that right now is, I understand it's hard right now. It's a challenge with COVID. It's hard to meet people, but, I do see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And, when things do get better, you'll have plenty of opportunities to meet new people and, build friendships, build connections, build your network, all that kind of stuff. And I hope that this episode provided information and insightful information to people who are looking into this kind of area.
Yeah, no, and thank you for coming on, man. I'm very happy with having you on. Very happy with what we talked about, and I hope everybody listening learned something. I for sure learned something new as well. So, that's a wrap for today's episode. If our podcast brought you any value, please consider subscribing, liking, dropping a comment, sharing. We would love to hear your thoughts and comments on our Instagram and YouTube at Outofchaospodcast. Remember that chaos is unavoidable, but we are here to shine some light on the craziness of the world. And we try to bring clarity to the various topics that we discuss. So catch you guys on the next time on the Out of Chaos podcast.